Hey, hi everyone. This will be an introduction class to Python, or a demo class for Python. And myself, Shivakumar, and I am a person who is having total 7 years of experience in IT industry, working as a Python developer. So I'll be your trainer for the rest of the classes. So where we will be discussing on Python and how Python can be used as a programming language for developing various kind of applications, for example, desktop applications, web applications, IoT application, and how Python has been extensively used in data sciencing and machine learning, IoT application, networking, and why it become so popular. And we covered most of the topics on these classes, and this will be an introduction class as informed earlier. Okay, so we'll do why, what is the reason and why we need it, Python, out of many languages in the market, and why we want to start and learning Python itself, and we will discuss with that. Okay, and today, for everything it has a trend. Even when you open a business, there will be trend when you open the business and how business is doing and how it has been functioning over the time, right? For that we just have a trend analysis. Okay, so we just do a Google Trends and come to Google Trends. You can use any other, you can choose just any programming language, any top 5 programming language you think of. You can think of Java. So it is the most highly used languages in the early 2000s. And now, so this is the trend over the period of time, right? Okay, so just go with the worldwide, entire worldwide, how it has been used. And from 2004 onwards, how it is functioning on. We're going to compare all the programming languages. For example, let's compare with the C++. Okay, so this is one of the high-level programming language, and we have C Sharp. Okay, and now let's add Swift for iOS development and all we have, right? Swift programming language. And now let's compare all these three languages, right? Now let's compare with the Python. Now, if you see here over the period of time, and I'm having blue color for Java, and uh, I'm very bad with the colors. Okay, this, consider this as a purple. Okay, the purple color is how is the trend over the time. If you see here, early 2000, the marking, Java is having 89 and Python is very under. Just if you see here, over the period of time, how it has been changing. When I just come to 2008, no, early 2006, now Java dropped to 70 and Python is still 5. Until you change this, you see this behavior up to 20, okay, up to 26, 14, right? You have the same trend. There is no change in the Python because over this period of time from 2004 to 2014, Java is the mostly used high level, no, most used language. But when you see here, from 2016 onwards, you can now completely observe there is a change in trend behavior from Python. If you see here, now I'm 2015, right? 2015, now it's changed to 6 to 7, 7 to 8. Now, if you see, observe 2016 onwards, now it jumps from 9. Now it jumped to 10, right? 11, 12, right? When I change it to 17, now Java dropped to 25, Python is 14, right? Over the period of time, see here, see for the first time, Java has taken over, no? Java has been taken over by Python. Early, in the October 2019, Java is just 18, but Python is 20. That's how the trend over the period of time. Where because in the 2019, if you remember correctly, there was the time everybody is familiar with the terms like big data, and everybody is want to be part of how data is functioning on and where the data has been analyzed properly. And Python has been introduced with many other programming languages and many libraries to be precise. Python has such kind of extensive library support. For everything you have a library. It has more than you can count off all, since because this is a open source, in a sense it has such kind of open source open source library support as well. So everybody is so familiar, they want to use it. Okay, now if you see here, from over this period of time, Java downfall started and Python gets over. So now still 20 now, right? See here, even just still here 2022, Python just come to 29, Java is still 19, right? Now Python, Python started to 20, 28, 29, and Java got started 17. And now currently trend is we are in February 2024, and now see Python is 25 and Java is still 16. See, right? Once Python has been taken over, and the way Python is has been used over the industry has been changed, because and the early we are having a latest releases like 3.10 and 3.11 and 3.12 is the latest version which we are currently holding on. And Python has provided any these kind of libraries, right, for everything. For data analysis, we have pandas and NumPy. For visualization, we have matplotlib, seaborn, and these kind of libraries have just been added. Okay. And the use cases wise, Java, no, Python has been used in all kind of applications. For example, when you are using a desktop applications, you can use that. And we have database application for networking. We are having a games for data analytics purpose, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and not in just specific to single domain. It can be used across all kind of applications. You can develop it. So that is the use case of Python. Okay. When you are coming to Python, when if you are looking for a job roles also, you can apply for Python developer, Python QA, data analyst, data engineer, data scientist, network engineer, Python or Python plus AWS. So there is extensive number of job profiles you can apply for as well. So that is the that's how industry has been using the Python nowadays. So now you understand, right, the value you can add for your career if you learn the Python as a one programming language. And it is not a big deal. If you are familiar with any one of the programming language, it is very easy for you to pick it up, because everybody know, if you are familiar with any other software developers, any other IT professionals, if you're familiar, everybody will they say Python is very easiest language, because the syntax is so easy, and it is just like you are just writing an a English statement, like you are writing a English grammar kind of thing. That's how it is, that much easier it is for you if you try to understand how uh, Python is working on. When in terms of writing the code, in terms of debugging the code, it will always very easier for developers. They don't need to write multiple lines of code. That's what everybody says, right? You don't have to write 20 lines of code. You can write it using Python within 7 to 8 lines of code. You can write the same thing. Okay, that's what Python provides. So that's how I know, if you learn this Python now, the based on these industry trends, we should be adaptable in the IT industry. So since you pick it up Python, you can apply for all these kind of roles and where you can use the Python. Okay, good. And for this session, I'm going to use Python 3.11, the version which I'm going to use, and Visual Studio Code as an IDE, Visual Studio Code, which I'm going to use where I want to write my Python program. And I'm going to use that. And whenever we required, we also use the Jupyter Notebook or Google Colab whenever it is required. Okay. And for this version, I'm going to use Visual Studio Code and Python 3.11. We just have to do Control Nugget symbol. You'll get your terminal. Otherwise, if you're not familiar with the keyboard shortcuts, you just come here, terminal. You just have to give continue new terminal. That's it. Your terminal will be open. You just have to type Python space hyphen and uppercase V. This will provide you what Python version which you're going to use or which has been installed already. I'm going to use 3.11. Okay. And if you have any doubts, I know in terms of installation process, we'll have another class where we're going to do all this system setup for to learn these Python classes. Since, okay, for this introduction part, we're going to discuss what is Python, okay, and why we need it. And we already discussed that why part, right? Why we need it. We now you saw the Google trend, how it is taken over with comparing with other programming language, how Python is being the first place from past 4 to 5 years, right? And now we're going to discuss what is Python and what are the futures you're going to get it if you are using the Python, and what are the like what are the limitations if you are simply using the Python, right? And there is also some limitations and by using the Python, and these are what we're going to discuss in today's class. Okay. And I'll try to cover, there is two functions which I want to cover. Okay. So as part of programming demo, I'll take you, how to take an user input from the user. We have to take an input from the user, which is like, it's going to ask you what, please enter an input. You're going to enter an input and you're going to print it that console. We're going to discuss like what is the input statement and what is the output statement. Clear? Okay. So first I'm going to create some text file. You just want to create a text file, right? You just have to click on this plus symbol where you're going to create a new file. You can create it. Okay. So just give introduction dot text file. Okay. And this is where introduction. Let's just say. Python, right? So in most of the programming language, we have two different categories. One is high level programming language and low level programming language. Low level is nothing but assembly language. Only machines can understand, which is not readable by human. Okay, so that those all we call it as an assembly language. For example, if you want to call an assembly languages, we have some like MASM and all. Okay, you just type assembly languages, right? When you will get this assembly language, which is not human readable. See, for example, if you understand, if you try to read this one, this is you feel it like what is a you won't understand much differences. It is not much readable when you're comparing with any other high level programming language. Okay, otherwise you just type on what is the low level languages. Okay, you're gonna get this. Just come that here, which is you're gonna read it like. Now you understand the difference. A low-level language is something like it is completely a machine readable code, which cannot be readable by any human. Okay, so it's just a byte code, ones and zeros, right? Which cannot be readable. And high-level programming language, we have another side where a human can read it. For example, if I read it here, if there is a if statement which is comparing with I less than 5, and you're gonna print it. If that condition satisfied, otherwise you're gonna take an else block. That's how high level programming language. And now I can read it. Okay, that's how a high level programming language works. Okay, so now Python is a high level programming language. I am not gonna need any bytecode thing. Okay, here I can write it. Python is a high level programming language. Okay, and this high level programming language has been developed by one person, one of the great person. Okay, so his name is Guido van Rossum. We should give some credit to him, right? So the person who developed it. So he's the one mastermind who created this entire programming language from the scratch, and how Python can be used, and how what are the syntaxes, and over the he has taken multiple the syntaxes and everything from different languages, and he developed this this programming language as a Python. And that person is nothing, he is the person. He is the person who created this our entire Python programming language. Okay, so he developed this one in the early 1991. That is the time when he created a high level programming language. So that is the time even everybody's all the programming languages has such kind of demand. They need one programming language which can take care of for both functional programming and also object oriented programming and also scripting. And all these features it can be satisfied by the Python. It has the features, right, where you can use for functional device, functional level, functional programming language also you can use it. And you can also use for object-oriented programming, which is nothing but everybody mostly calls with OOPS, right? Object-oriented programming. And you can also use for scripting purpose. Python can be both used for scripting as well. And all these features, Python will satisfy that. Okay, so now this person, Guido van Rossum, by keeping all these features in mind, and he developed this programming language. Okay, so which is available from the early 1991 onwards, it is available. And this language is not like any strongly typed programming language, where whenever you are declaring any variable, you don't have to specify the data type. For example, when I was giving a number, Okay, when it is a Java or any other programming language, you have to specify what is the data type to it. What is the line, what is the number? If it is a number, you have to specify, I'm giving a number, like an integer, I'm going to declare it and you're going to define it. For example, if I want to just give you a number, right? I cannot give the number like this directly, but you have to specify the what is the data type to it. So here I'm giving a number. Number is nothing, but here I'm giving an integer. That is the data type, and I have to give the number. Then I have to specify what is the number I want to pass. This is what we call, strongly typed programming language. Even at the time of declaration itself, at the time of declaration, you have to specify what is the data type. Okay, at the time of declaration, you will have to specify the data type. Okay, but Python is not a strongly typed programming language. Python is a dynamically typed programming language. Okay, so Python, this is how Python will work. Here, at the time of declaration, I'm not specifying any data type here. I'm just giving a variable. This number is right. I'm considering that as a variable, and that variable value holds that number 123. Whenever I need to get that number 123, I just have to give number. You will get that number. Okay, let me show you how this works actually. Let me create one programming, one .py file. Okay, normally you just create an the naming convention of the Python, right? You just have to give your file name, anything file name. I'm just giving a test dot any file you are giving .py, that becomes a Python file. If you see here .p, I'm whenever get the y now, automatically see here. Here the symbol gets changes. Py. See, now it's a Python symbol. Okay, now it becomes a Python file. Now, when I was giving this number, right? Number is equal to 123. That's what I was doing earlier. Example, right? If you want to know what is the data type to it, you just have to give print statement. What the print statement is an output function, which takes, which prints that user, output on the console. So this is, I'm going to consider as a my console, and you can see the output here. You just give the number, print of number, and your number is going to print it here. If you want to execute it, you just give Python space, what is the file name? Test.py. Okay, now you got execute. See here, your output is coming. Line number, no, that's 123. Here, you're not specifying any data type here. You're just passing a number, and this number is getting held by number. This number is a variable. See here, number has been a variable, and this line now, no, this 123. That now 123 is the number, right? 123. That now hold by the number as a variable. And whenever I need that, I just have to call that variable name, and you will get that. Okay, but the thing is, since you are not defining it, and the data type will be defined at the time of execution itself. It's not, you don't have to specify it manually, and Python will consider what is the data type based on the value you are passing on. Here, if I pass the value as number 123, right? Now that 123, if you want to check the type, you just have to give the type of number. Okay, now if I execute this one, now if you see here, it's an integer. Integer is nothing but a number for me. In the Python, right, all the numbers are considered either integer or either float. Okay, now in Python, we consider numbers, right? Either it should be either integer or either floating point. What, sir, why we need two different types? All are numbers, right? All are numbers, but in order to differentiate them, all whole numbers are considered as an integers. For example, any number, if you have 1, 12, 34, even 1 lakh, all those numbers are considered as whole numbers. But you don't have any point decimals and you have some value. Those are considered as a floating numbers. All decimal numbers will be considered as a float. Even for example, I have 12.1. Whenever you just have 0.1, okay, that is a floating point number. Even you have a 34.0. Now this becomes a floating number. Okay, how you wanna, if you wanna check it, you just give a num is equal to, you just specify 34.0. You think like 0.4, 0.0 is nothing, right? You just think like 34. But the thing is, Python, you will consider this as a floating number, not a whole number. Okay, now just check that. Print of type. Type is the function which I'm going to use. We want to check the data type to it. I just have to give num. Okay, if I execute this program, you get it right. We got float. All decimal numbers will be considered as a float data type, and all whole numbers will be considered as an integer data type. Here, it's a 123 is a whole number, and it is considered as an integer. And this 34 is considered as a floating point number. If you want to print that, you will print that as well, num comma. That's it. Now, if I execute this, 123 is a whole number that is considered as an integer, and 34.0, which is a decimal number, that is considered as a floating number. Okay. Now let's get back. Okay. So whenever if I want to print that some value on my console, I have to use my print function, which will work as my output statement. This is my output statement. Okay. And now we are discussing the introduction part, right? Now you understand the difference, right? Python is a dynamically typed programming language, not a strongly typed. Dynamically means when you are passing a value, the data type will be decided at the time of value has been passed. For example, at the time of number 1 is equal to 123. Now I'm passing 123, that becomes an integer. If you pass 123.0, that becomes a floating number, floating data type. That is clear, right? Okay. So the main features of Python, right? So we had already discussed it can be used for functional programming, and we can use for object-oriented programming, and we can use for scripting also. So these are the main advantages and what are the features we can use it. And we also have some of the features, and these are the three major features, right? And we also have few major other features as well. The first one is platform independent. Okay, so what is platform? Platform is nothing but a combination of a software plus hardware. A software plus hardware. That's what platform. Platform is nothing but a software and hardware. If you are having a piece of software, that is not a platform. Okay, it's just a software. You are having a laptop, but it doesn't have any starting functionality. It doesn't have when you press a power button, right? There should be a software inside. When you press a software button, he press a button, and a laptop has to be started. Whenever I'm just typing the keyboard, and that that character has been typed on the screen. That's the software which has been built. Okay, for example, everybody uses the TV and TV remote, right? When you are just changing the channel, you just have to change the channel or incrementing the channel. Automatically the channel gets changes. That's the software. If that software is not there, even you are having hardware that is not, it doesn't have any functionality to it. A platform is nothing but a combination of both software and hardware. Okay, consider this. Okay, whenever I used and I write some program, I write some 10 lines of code. Okay. And now whenever it is running in my machine, I'm running in this line, right? I'm running this test.py file in my local. When I'm running, this 123 is now an integer. But if I have the same piece of code, if running in another person system, it is giving a float or some other random thing. But it is not working. If I the same line of code functioning or behaving differently, the system to system. Okay, that is completely not working as expected. If I write the same lines of code and execute it in my system, it should be same wherever it is getting executed, irrespective of the system configuration. It has to be executed the same. That is what platform independent means. Even if I run the same lines of code in my system, it should give the same output. If you run it in your system, it should give the same output, right? The output should not be changing. So that's what platform independent means. And Python is a platform independent. So if I have a same piece of code, if you are running in my machine and your machine, you will be getting the same output. Okay, and now we have Python is an interpreter language. Interpreted language. Okay, what is interpreted language? Interpreted language is nothing but line by line execution. line by line execution. First, it will check the first line. If that line is good, then it will go and check the next line. It's not a compiled programming language. Compiled programming language, like when you are just, you have to running it before running a thing, you have to compile that programming language, and a bytecode will be generated, and that bytecode will be executed at the time of execution. Okay, but Python is just a programming language which works as an interpreter language, which goes a line by line execution. That's what an interpreter language is. These are the five main features of Python. Okay, and where it has been used. Let's go now where I have been used. Use cases, right? Python can be used to develop a desktop application and networking and games, and we are also using for data analysis purpose, and data for data analysis purpose, we have pandas and numpy. These two are the external libraries which you want to know. If you want to list that, use that Python for data analysis, you have to use these external Python libraries to, to do the data analysis and data visualization. And for that, we have matplotlib and Seaborn. And Python can be used for scientific calculations. And we have one external library for it, SkyPy. Okay. And it can be used for machine learning. And it has been used for data analysis. Sorry, data analysis as a given. Data scientist. And we can also use in IoT applications. See how many are the use cases wherever you want to use it. And all these kind of applications you want to develop, you can simply use the Python to develop this kind of applications. And there are many more as well. If you want to use the Python, you can use it in all the cases as well. So we missed one major one actually. The major one is to develop a web applications. Web application has a very vital role, right? All the web application, you just open a browser, and all the applications are getting considered as a web application. You are trying to access through the internet. For example, I just open my browser and this is a website. This is the google.com. This is a web application which has been developed. Any website which you are developing it, no, you just give youtube.com. That is also which has been developed by Python itself. And wherever you want to develop a website, you can use that Python to develop a web application. For that, we have one external library, which is a Django. Django. Using Django, you can develop a web applications. All these are the use cases of Python. Now you understand, right? The use cases of Python, and you know where and all you can use the Python. This, that is what Python makes so powerful now. So we discussed what are the features and where we can use the Python and what are the use cases of it. Sir, but what are the limitations? Does Python has any limitations which is yet to come back? What are the limitations? Yes, Python also has few limitations. The first thing is, if you see here, the use cases wise, or we can use for all cases. But in terms of mobile care, no, in terms of to develop a mobile applications, Python is not up to the mark. Because Python is not keeping up in terms of the performance wise. Even let's say the performance is also not up to the mark. Since it's an interpreter language, right? It has to check line by line. It is not generating a bytecode, which is faster. Since it's a high level programming language, right? Python, I said, Python is a high level programming language. First, computer has to read it as a high level language. Then it has to convert into a bytecode, then system will understand. Any system, any laptop will not understand a high level programming language by itself directly. First, it has to convert into zeros and ones, a binary code. Okay, then only it can understand. A bytecode will be understand. A low-level code will be understandable all missions. Okay. So Python is going to consider, Python is going to consider, and it has to check line by line. So that what Python makes performance is low. It has to check. For example, in my single Python file, it has around 1,000 lines of code, and such kind of files I'm having around 100 files. It has to check every 100 files every time. Like whenever a file, whenever a program is running on, it has to go line by line. So that is completely impacting the performance of the application. Nowadays, when you just click on a button, you just have to, your application has to be, and you just have to get the response. Even we don't be waiting to video to get buffered. In earlier days, whenever the internet speed is very low before Geo, right? You just have to get a internet package, and you have to wait to video get to buffered. Then only you can see the video. Nowadays, you don't get you don't see that because we are getting high speed internet, right? Now the same wise, performance is also not up to the mark. Whenever just click on a button, you should get a response. So, but Python is not up to the mark when it comes to the performance. Okay, so these two are the two major limitations what I can find with the Python. Okay, and sir, we discussed introduction. What is the Python? Who developed it? As part of introduction part, we discussed what is high-level programming language and what is the low-level language for this session, and how if you want to know the what is the dynamically typed and strongly typed programming language. And we discussed that what are the different features of Python and where you can use that Python as well, and what are the limitations. We discussed all these topics. Okay, and we will be discussing what is the input statement and output statement. Now you understand, right? If you want to print anything on your console, you just have to give your print function. Print is a function, right? If you just hover on it, print is a function which takes all inputs and it will just print it on the console. That's it. It just prints the value string. If you know this IDE, Visual Studio Code has this feature. You just have to hover on that function. You will get that. What is this function is offering to you? What this function will do for you? This is the output statement. Sir, since print is an output statement, what is the input statement for me? What is the input statement? Okay, the input statement is nothing but you just have to give input function. That's it. You just have to use your input function. That is your input. And if you want to print it, that is output. The output statement is print function and input statement is input function. That's it. Whatever you are giving this user input, right? Just hold it by some reference. For example, I'm giving my name, and whenever this execution, right, I need to ask, please enter your name. Okay. If I'm specifying that, whenever this line gets executed, automatically it will print. It will ask for my name. Print name. So print function is nothing but my output statement, right? Print is my output statement. And input is my input function, input statement. Now I'm executing this Python test.py file. You just have to give it that. Otherwise, you don't have to specify this thing. You just have to specify. This is how you execute a Python file. If you see here, when I talk about, right, Python is an interpreted programming language. Python will come line by line execution. First, it will check line number 3, number is equal to 123, and that variable got created. And line number 5, that variable I am printing, and what is the data type to it. See here, class 123, and it has been printed. Same happens to line number 11 as well. Number is equal to 334.0, and that has been printed. Now, when line number 16 getting executed, right? This line number 16, it is asking what? It is taking an user input. Until I am giving an input, it will wait. The cursor will be here only. It will take that user input. For example, I'm giving my name. Shiv. And now when I just click on enter, it takes that Shiv as an user input, and that input will be hold it and name as a variable. And now I'm printing that output statement, right, by using print function. And that will be printed here. See here, Shiv. I'm just giving it that user input, and that has been considered, that has been assign to name, and now it got printed. If you want to see this, all these things, right? Okay. Let me see. Let me show you how these variables are getting stored for you. We just have to come Python. And same version I'm using, right? Python 3.11. Okay. Now if we see here visualization. Here, line by line execution. Python is interpreted. That's what I told, right? Next line. See, and my number is equal to 123 got created. Next line. Same thing. I'm printing 123 and what is the data type to it? Okay. Next one. Number is equal to 34.0 and that has been printed. Okay. Now I'm taking user input, right? See, when this line got executed, it is waiting to give an input. Now I'm giving my input, shift. When I click on the submit, now it goes to 17. Okay. Now it goes to 17. And now user input has been given, shift. Now its name is equal to shift. Now there is three variables now. Number is one variable, num is one other variable, name is another variable. These three variables has been declared and which has been there in memory as well. Now I'm printing that name. What is the name? Shiv. Shiv has to be printed on my output statement. Okay, this is the print output, right? See here. Click on that. Now Shiv has been printed. This is my output statement. Print is the output statement and name. If I want to take that user input, I have to use the input function. That's it. These are my input and output statements. Okay. And with this session, I'll be winding up. We are now up to now. We covered what is the Python introduction, what are the features, what are the use cases, and what are the limitations. And we also covered two functions, right? One is for output statement, another one for input statement. And we covered one more as well, which is type function. If you want to check the data type, because Python is a dynamically typed programming language, which you are not defining the data type, right? If you want to check the data type of a function or a variable, you have to give the type. Okay, then you will get the data type of it. With this, we'll wind up this demo, first introduction class.